Hi, everybody. You're reading with Jimmy. We're reading part 3 of 4 parts of Guy de Maupassant's The Horla. A white cardboard, as she would have seen in the mirror. You'll recall we left off in the previous reading. His cousin was reading in the cardboard. The young woman cried out in horror, "Enough, but that's enough." And the doctor said in an authoritative tone, "You will get up tomorrow at 8 o'clock. And then you will go to see your cousin at his hotel and beg him to lend you 5,000 francs, which your husband has asked you to obtain, and you will ask for on his next leave." And then he woke her up. On the way back to the hotel, I thought about this curious seance, and I was assailed by doubts, not only to the absolute questionable good faith of my cousin, whom I've known like a sister since my childhood, but as to the possibility of a trick on the part of the doctor. Might he not have had a mirror concealed in his hand, which he had shown the young woman at the same time as the visiting card? You know, professional conjurers do much stranger things than that. As soon as I got back to the hotel, I went to bed. Well, this morning, about 8:30, I was awoken by my man, who said to me, "Madame Sibel is here, monsieur, asking to see you straight away." I dressed hurriedly and had her shown in. She sat down and looked extremely agitated, her eyes downcast, and without raising her veil, she said, "My dear cousin, I have a great favor to ask you." "What is it, cousin?" I find it very embarrassing to tell you, and yet I must. I need 5,000 francs desperately." You need 5,000 francs? Come now." "I do, or rather, my husband does, and he has told me to get them." I was so astonished that I stammered as I spoke to her. I wondered whether she and the doctor might not be making fun of me, and whether this might not just be a comedy planned in advance and very well acted. But then I looked closely at her, and all my doubts vanished. This request for money was so distasteful to her that she was trembling with anguish, and I could see that she was choking back sobs. I knew she was extremely rich, and I went on. "What? Do you mean to say that your husband can't lay his hands on 5,000 francs? Come now, think. Are you sure that he told you to ask me for them?" She hesitated for a few moments, as if she were making a great effort to search her memory, and then she replied, Yes, I'm sure he did." "Did he tell you in a letter?" She hesitated again, thinking over my question. I guessed at the agonizing torment of her mind. She didn't know. All that she knew was that she had to borrow 5,000 francs from me for her husband. So she plucked up enough courage to lie. "Yes, he told me in a letter." "But when did he write to you? You didn't say anything to me about it yesterday." "I got the letter this morning." "Can you let me see it?" No. It was very private. Too personal. I burnt it." "So your husband is in debt, is he?" She hesitated again and then murmured, "I don't know." I told her curtly, "The fact is, my dear cousin, I cannot lay my hands on 5,000 francs just now." She let out a sort of anguished cry. "Oh, please, get the money for me." She grew more and more excited, clasping her hands together, as if she were praying to me. The tone of her voice changed as she spoke. She wept, she stammered, harassed and dominated by the irresistible order that she had received. "I beg you, I implore you, if you only knew how unhappy I am. I have to have the money today." I took pity on her. "You shall have it later today, I promise you." "Oh, thank you," she cried. "How kind you are." "Do you remember," I went on, "what happened to at your house yesterday?" "Yes." "You remember Dr. Parent put you to sleep?" "Yes." "Well, he ordered you to come and borrow 5,000 francs from me this morning, and you're now obeying that order." She thought this over for a moment, and then she replied, because my husband wants the money. For a whole hour, I tried to convince her, but all in vain. After she left, I ran to the doctor's house. He was just going out, and he listened to me with a smile. And then he said, "Now do you believe?" "I have no alternative. Let's go see your cousin." She was already dozing in a chaise lounge, utterly worn out. The doctor felt her pulse, gazed at her for some time, and with one hand pointing at her eyes, which she gradually closed under the irresistible influence of that magnetic force. When she had been put to sleep, he told her, "Your husband no longer needs 5,000 francs. You will therefore forget that you asked your cousin to lend them to you. And if he mentions it to you, you will not understand." And then he woke her up. I took a wallet out of my pocket. "Here, cousin," I said, "is what you asked me for this morning." She was so astonished, I didn't dare press the point. All the same, I tried to stir her memory, but she denied everything fiercely. She thought I was making fun of her. And in the end, she nearly lost her temper. I have to get back to the hotel, and I've been unable to eat any lunch because of this experience has disturbed me so profound. July 19th. A lot of people I've told this adventure about have made fun of me. I don't know what to think about it now. The wise man says, perhaps. July 21st. I dined today at Bougleva and then spent the evening at the rowing club dance. There can be no doubt that everything depends on places and settings. To believe in the supernatural on the island of La Grenelle would be the height of folly, but on the top of Mount St. Michael or in India, we all fall irresistibly under the influence of our surroundings. I'm going home next week. July 30th. I arrived home yesterday. All is well. August 2nd. Nothing new. The weather is glorious. I spend my days watching the scene flow by. August 4th. My servants are quarreling among themselves. They maintain that somebody keeps breaking the glasses in the cupboards at night. My man blames the cook, who blames the linen maid, who blames the other two. Which of them is the culprit? It would take a clever man to find out. August 6th. This time, I'm not mad. I've seen it. I've seen it. I've seen it. I still feel cold right down to my fingertips. I feel chilled to the marrow. I've seen it. At 2:00 in broad daylight, I was strolling in my rose garden among the autumn roses, which are just beginning to come out. As I stopped to look at the Grenade de Bételi, which bore the 3 magnificent flowers, I distinctly saw, right in front of me, the stem of one of those roses bend as if an invisible hand had twisted it, and then break as if the same hand had plucked it. And then the flower swept upwards, descending the curve an arm would have made, carrying it towards the mouth, and remained suspended in the limpid air, all alone, motionless, a terrifying splash of red 3 paces from my eyes. I rushed madly at it to grasp it, but there was nothing there. It had disappeared. And then I was filled with furious rage against myself. For a sane, serious-minded man does not have hallucinations like that. But was it really a hallucination? I turned around to look for the stem. I found it straight away on the bush, newly broken, between the other 2 roses which still remained on the branch. And then I came back into the house utterly appalled. For I am certain, as certain as I am that night follows day, that an invisible creature exists besides me, which feeds on milk and water, and which can touch things, pick them up, and move them about, which is therefore endowed with a material nature, imperceptible though it may be to our senses, and which is living like myself beneath my roof. August 7th. I had a peaceful night. He drank the water in my carafe, and he did not disturb my sleep. I wonder if I'm mad. While I was walking along the riverbank just now in the blazing sunshine, I was afflicted with doubts as to my sanity. Not vague doubts, such as I've had before, but detailed, well-founded doubts. I have seen some madmen in my time. I've known some that remained intelligent, lucid, even clear-headed about everything in life except for one single point. They would talk clearly, easily, and profoundly about everything until all of a sudden their mind ran aground on the reef of their madness and was torn to pieces, scattered to the winds, and sunk without a trace in that fearful raging sea, full of surging waves, fogs, and squalls, which we call insanity. I would certainly think that I was utterly and completely mad if I were not in full possession of my faculties, if I were not perfectly aware of my state of mind, if I were not able to sound it and analyze it with absolute lucidity. I would therefore seem to be just suffering from hallucinations while remaining perfectly sane. Some unknown disturbance must have taken place in my brain, one of those disturbances which modern psychologists are trying to examine and elucidate. And this disturbance has presumably opened up a deep chasm in my mind, in the logical order of my ideas. Similar phenomena occur in dreams when they take us through the most improbable phantasmagoria without our feeling any surprise, because the mechanism of checking and verification is asleep, while the imaginative faculty is awake and working. May not the explanation be one that the imperceptible keys of my cerebral keyboard is jammed? Sometimes after an accident, a man loses his memory for proper names and verbs and figures or simply dates. The localization of all the various divisions of the mind has now been conclusively established. We're going to stop there. I'd like you to tune in for part 4 of the analysis of Guy de Maupassant's The Horla. You're reading with Jimmy. This is Jimmy. You can email me, Jimmy@readingwithjimmy.com, Jimmy@readingwithjimmy.com. Thanks for listening.